Welcome to Brick by Brick, where we'll be speaking to younger and older members of the LGBTQIA community, establishing a timeline of the efforts that have brought us this far, and looking toward the future at the work that still needs to be done. This show is brought to you by One Roof Chicago, a nonprofit organization dedicated to building a queer, intergenerational housing community on Chicago's South Side. My name is Chijioke Williams. I use she, her pronouns, and today we'll be speaking with David Dodd, whose recent work gives me hope for the future. Hello, David.
Hey, Chi, how's it going?
It's going well. How are you?
I'm wonderful. Can't complain.
Let's get right into it.
Yes.
First of all, before we begin, what are your pronouns?
He, him. It doesn't really matter. I think positive, but he, him.
Okay, you got it. And so, first let's establish who David Dodd is. Tell us a little about yourself.
David Dodd is a native of Washington, D.C. that moved to Chicago 25 years ago. And probably, I think, 5 years into my matriculation to Chicago, I started to work in the community. And work in the community, starting to work with organizations that were putting on events and other types of, happenings in the community at the time. And then pretty much that's been my life for the past 20 years, working with many different organizations in our community, and then also hosting events of my own, to continue to bring us together and to galvanize and come together, to have a good time, but also to talk about issues and things that are happening in the community when it's necessary.
Yeah. And when you say the community, do you mean the queer or LGBTQ community, the Black community, or some combination of the two?
So I've done a combination of the two. I've done work that has focused specifically on the overall community. And then I've done quite a bit of work in the space that focuses on a more cisgender, queer male experience, so lived experience. And so that's been most of my work, but I have done some work, overarching as well.
Yeah. And what would you say have been some of the main benefits of bringing together through these events?
Well, I think oftentimes we don't realize as a community, as much as we are different, we are often alike in a lot of ways as well. And I think it creates an opportunity for us to have those conversations and build those connections and understand that you're not the only one who may be experiencing certain types of things, whether it's positive, negative, or indifferent. And I think being a servant, as I look at myself as a servant and a connector of people, I think I realize there's greatness that comes from bringing people together. And also, I think it shines a light on the collective energies that we have as a community, and then how we can utilize those collective energies to then create better for ourselves and for the community we want to have ideally.
Wow, I love that. Would you say you can point to a specific moment in your life that inspired you to do the work that you're doing? You said it was about 5 years into being in Chicago. When were you like, oh wow, I think I could bring people together, or I can do events that really make people realize their value?
That's a very good question, Chi. I think I just kind of fell into it. I don't know if I felt like I had like a epiphany or a defining moment. I think sometimes, I always say this, the gods that I serve and that love me, I think often present things to you that you don't realize, that you could do, even think about doing, and then what eventually becomes part of your purpose. Okay, and so that's kind of how I thought about it. I guess if I had to think through when I first came to Chicago, what I was experiencing, certainly as a young gay man coming to the city, the spaces and places where people were having community at the time, I just had such a great experience in those rooms, getting to know the folk that was there, regardless of how you identified. I just really enjoyed it. And so I started to, just love being out and being amongst my people, really. And then a friend of mine knew of some work that I had done in my career, which is mostly in marketing, public relations, and advertising, and asked me to help them with some of their public relations and advertising and marketing efforts. And that was Windy City Black Pride. At the time, the organization is no longer in work, but At the time, that's what it was. And so he asked me to come to that space to help them and support them in their efforts. And that kind of started the journey of kind of that led me down the path where I'm at now have done the work that I've done and staying in community and staying connected to community and creating spaces for us.
No, I think that's very interesting because a lot of the time when people think about activism, they don't necessarily think about marketing or about like parties and such first. However, there is something to be said for creating an image, right? There's something to be said for representation and showing Black or queer joy in its many forms. And we'll get to talking about your involvement with One Roof Chicago in a moment.
Yeah.
But would you say that all of these years of investing in these images or investing in Black and LGBT joy have built on themselves? Have you made connections that have been helpful in the future? Have you seen, lasting impact from some of the stuff or the events or the people that you've brought together?
Oh, most definitely. I mean, it's great to know that most of the people that I've connected with 20 years ago I also still connect with now. And to see, their evolution, my evolution, and them also staying in connection with what I have created or who I partnered with or other organizations or entities that I partner with to create spaces where we can come together as a community. I think you're right that most people don't think about marketing, advertising, or public relations or even events as activism, and it truly is. I think talking to some of our elders in the community, to be honest with you, I learned a lot from them because I stand on those shoulders as well. That's how community came together. That's how a lot of activism actually was done, oftentimes by going to the club spaces and talking about what was happening, well, what was not happening, and the people coming together to create something to make a change or to make a difference in the community. And I think, to be honest with you, I think we lost sight of that a little bit. I think kind of our world is a little bit different compared to those times when they were having those experiences in the community. And now, even though we have challenges and struggles and obstacles to overcome, I just think the lens on it is a little bit different than it was then in the community. And by me creating spaces, I want to bring some of that back a little bit and have that level of connectivity where we can kind of come together to do that type of activism and bring those efforts forward at the same time. Activism just doesn't sit in the space of the organizations that exist in our communities. It can't be done if it's not for the people. And we need to have those people to be involved, to be engaged in that. So the more spaces and opportunities we can create to have those dialogues, those conversations, and to bring issues forward, the better off organizations are in our community are to get those things done that we need to get done in our communities.
I love that. And speaking of what we want to get done or need to get done in our communities, let's talk a little about One Roof Chicago.
Yeah.
So right now, you are the head of the Workforce Development Initiative at One Roof Chicago. That absolutely is an initiative that is, I would say, at least a good third of what we've been trying to do with this organization. Can you talk a little bit about what that is?
Sure. So the Workforce Development Program that we have at One Roof Chicago specifically focuses on helping members of our community to become community health workers. And that field is a field that is vast and ever growing. It's certainly something that's needed in our communities, especially when we're talking about health and providing adequate and accessible health care to members of our communities, especially those who are under-resourced or having some disadvantages and trying to handle their health and their quality of life. So by us providing this opportunity to create health workers in our community, not only we're giving people jobs, it also helps them to have a quality of life that they want to have, but also we're supporting people in our communities who most need it by making sure that there are people who live, look, and love like us, helping those who live, look, and love like us at the same time. So it's kind of the us helping us mentality. And oftentimes, in the broader healthcare landscape, there really isn't a lot of work that is specific to our community with the needs of our community and the lens that looks on. And we do a great job with this program and making sure we're connected with individuals who are connected to that so that we are making sure that those people are representing the community in the right way, but also serving those who are in need.
that actually gets to the next thing I was going to ask, which was basically, what role would you say the community at large has had in the community health worker program? This isn't just ORC, we're working with other organizations in order to pull this all together.
Exactly.
What are some of those community partners?
So we are working with, I've had various meetings with a lot of our community organizations, Life is Work, Project Vita, Brave Space Alliance, Task Force. I mean, there's quite a few. So that we've connected to and tapping into their clients and their constituencies to share the program with them so that we can get them involved in the program. I mean, this is a very unique program because we are providing free tuition through this program, which is oftentimes in the workforce development space, you don't hear a lot of that being offered specifically to members of our own community, right? And so that's what makes this program extra special. It's not just about interview skills and resume building, even though things are essential and very important in the world as we need those things to get a job, right? Sure. But I think we need to look at this as extra special because we don't really have the opportunity to provide free education and training to get a certificate that can lend itself to you getting a job, period. And I think that is what is extra special about this program. And then the caveat to that being that we can create folk in our community to support people in our community who would need those type of services, which is also very important, especially with our aging population. It's essential. They need those. They need those services.
Absolutely. And just to talk for a moment about what Roof Chicago is doing here, we are trying to build an intergenerational home, intergenerational location, where a lot of the folks who have made it through the AIDS crisis and the HIV crisis, but who have lost a ton of their own community, right? To mental health crises, to dying of HIV or AIDS. It's a sad reality that a lot of our community was decimated. And frankly, to be decimated means 1 in 10. We've been more than decimated by these crises. And so the idea of building a location, building a home for all of the people who have made it through that, who have those memories, who've lasted long enough to share all of that knowledge to the younger people in the community, that is a very important dream that both of us are investing in here. And so the idea then of investing in the youth in our community, the young adults who may be marginalized, who may not have the resources to go to college, giving them free tuition, right? Free education in order to make it through school, become community health workers, and then as they've been given wisdom from their elders, they can give back in terms of healthcare, in terms of being there for them, in terms of volunteering, or just being in the space enough to contribute whatever they can or what they feel they can give.
Yeah.
We're trying to create something symbiotic here,
Yeah,
right?
absolutely.
Where the youth are helping the elders and the elders are helping the youth.
Yeah, that is an important bridge. I think oftentimes, we hear this, it's like, oh, either you're too old or too young. There's no such thing. We are all one, and even young folk and older folk in our generation, everybody is probably experiencing some of the same issues, but they might just manage them a little bit differently depending on your walk of life or where you come from. I mean, if you're someone who is an elder and you might be 50 or 60 plus, you have a different lived experience as someone who might be in their early 20s or what have you. Doesn't mean that the issue might not be there and it's present for both of you, but you might navigate them a little bit differently just based on your own lived experiences and your own histories, right? And there's an opportunity to learn from that. There's an opportunity to learn from that, especially when we talk about quality of life and making sure that everybody is getting what they need so they can have the lives that they want to have and be in the spaces they want to be and feel supported by the community. I think we do so much segregation within our community with age and all of that, and it's really a disservice. Honestly, it's really a disservice, and I hope that this program kind of bridges kind of those gaps a little bit. And I think our older community and our younger community can start to have more of an appreciation for each other and learn from one another, and not look at the deficits or the differences, but look at the ways that we are, the commonalities, and how we can create community together and then also support each other in the community at the same time.
Absolutely. And so as far as details about this community health worker program, can you tell us a little bit more about the specifics, how people can join, where they would need to go to get more information about it, any of that stuff.
Sure. So, the information about the Workforce Development Program is on our website.
That's oneroofchicago.com.
Yes, that's
Oh, .org. .org.
.org. Yes. It's on our website. So we have a whole page dedicated to the Workforce Development Program, which is the Community Health Worker Program, by the way. So we have a page dedicated to that. My information is on their email and telephone number. We also have a space for you to fill out some preliminary information for me to contact you, to talk, touch bases with you about that. The program itself, we do use our social vehicles on One Roof Chicago, Instagram, as well as Facebook, to talk about the program and promote that as well. And we do have some upcoming events that we are planning to share more about the program with the community, as well as some Zooms, because everybody might not always be able to come to a physical event. So we're looking at doing some Zoom meetings as well.
And we're dedicated to accessibility. Just because you cannot be there physically does not mean that you can't still get information about it.
Exactly.
We're trying to reach out to everyone, regardless of physical ability.
Exactly.
Or any of the factors that might prohibit someone from being involved.
Exactly. And the program, it's a good program. We partner with Malcolm X College on the program. That's where the education for the program will come from. And then Friend Health is our partner who helps to fund the programming for those who participate in the program. But then not only that, there is an opportunity to have an apprenticeship with Friend Health. After you receive the certificates, that you can get some more hands-on experience as a community health worker with them specifically. So it's a great program, one that's very special. We do also partner with Cara Collective as well. For those who have not had the opportunity to be in a college or university environment, they do have I'm calling it a prep course for 4 weeks that kind of gives you some just some knowledge, some personal and professional development before you kind of go into the college environment, which I think is essential, especially depending on your walk of life, where you come from. If you maybe have never been in a college or university system before, this is kind of a great stepping stone to doing that. And the good thing with our relationship with Malcolm X College, we do have the relationship with the city of Chicago College's navigation team. And what they do is they do help our participants who are enrolling in the program navigate all of those various obstacles and or challenges that you may face when enrolling in schools. So if you can't get in touch with the advisor, or they don't have your letter from Friend Health on file to make sure that your education is paid for, they will help our participants navigate all of those issues as it pertains to the program. Even with scheduling, if the advisor is not working with them to schedule your classes in a certain type of way, they will work with the advisor to do that. We do understand that everyone who's coming into this program is an adult, and so you have to work and live life and take care of family and other types of things. And so the great thing is that with our relationship with Malcolm X College and CCC specifically, they understand those things as well. And so when we are planning the education for the person, all of these things are taken into consideration, and we try to plan for the entire course program so that you always know your schedule, so that you can schedule your life around that, because that's important.
Absolutely it is. And it sounds like this program is specifically built to accommodate a lot of the things that often keep people from getting or completing an education, whether
Yes.
that is having to get a job in another place, having bulwarks in terms of not making enough money, or even just I can't tell you how difficult it was to be going to college full time, to be working full time, and then to be getting my schedule for work that week, like the day before the next week began.
Exactly.
And so it's great to see that the people planning this program, yourself included, are keeping all of those things in mind.
Yes, it's important. I mean, I think we have enrolled quite a few individuals into the program for the previous semester in the fall of last year, and as we're working to do the same thing for the upcoming summer and fall semesters for this year, we're kind of taking all the information that we're learning from them and kind of which is helping us ultimately kind of shape the program, make changes, or to think about how we can better serve folk as they are matriculating to the program or while they're going through the program at the same time, because that's important. Our goal is to make sure they stay in the program. So, we as One Roof Chicago, and then also with CCC, to your point, really just thinking about the barriers that can impact one's ability to stay in program. And I think we have to most definitely keep those things in mind because the goal is to finish. And so, yeah,
Absolutely.
I guess that's one way to say
Yes,
it.
that's incredible. And so I guess I am wondering if there is a deadline or a time that people need to get their information or applications in by to join this program.
Yes, so we are taking applicants for the summer session. The summer session does start, I believe, midweek in June. So we're really trying to get everyone enrolled into the program by May 31st.
By May 31st.
By May 31st. And then that way we can make sure that everything that you have or need to have to start those classes is done. And it gives me ample time. It gives Malcolm X and CCC ample time to work with students to make sure that everything is done accordingly. One other thing to add to about our relationship with CCC is that all of the resources that they do have to support students, our students have access to. So for example, a barrier potentially being, if you don't have a laptop, if you need a laptop to participate in the program, they actually have a laptop loaner program at the same time. And then also the scheduling is done in such a way where you can do hybrid, some remote, some in class, or all remote. So, thinking through all of these things, just making sure the program is done in such a way that, to your point, everyone, regardless of where you are, can participate and get this certificate to then become a community health worker.
We love to see it. And so we are close to wrapping up here, but a question I ask every guest on Brick by Brick is where they would like to see their efforts bring them so far. If you could say in 5 sentences or less, where will this community health worker or community health program bring us, bring One Roof Chicago, and bring Chicago's queer community as a whole?
The sound of how can I put this? I'm trying to think. Very good question. I'm trying to make sure I'm answering this in such a way.
I put a timer on you too. So
like 5 sentences. I think the times that we are in with the current administration and what it's doing to attack our community, I think demonstrates the need for programs like this, especially when we're talking about quality of life. We know that oftentimes many members in our community, if they don't have a job or whatever, that it minimizes everything else in their lives as well. Lack of access, or even further, lack of access to health care, or dealing with housing insecurity, food insecurity, other type of issues that can prevent them from being whole and full. And so a program like this is important because, one, it's paid tuition and it's free. So that's
important.
That's very important to drive home. But I think when we think about that, that is always kind of top of mind. The quality of life for our community. The better quality of life our members of our community have, the better that they live, the better that they continue to support themselves and other people in our community at the same time. We have to kind of continue that trickle down effect or what have you from each of us, younger or older, it doesn't matter. Younger people are going to get older. And you're still going to need a certain level of support. And the older generation or what have you, they still need support as they get older and, have to prepare for, what life inevitably has for all of us. And I think doing it together is more so important now than ever. And I think this program, and I think through the work of One Roof Chicago, it provides an opportunity for us to get in front of this, talk about these things, get the connectivity going so that we can continue to support ourselves through this time, especially, but also just period, because it's what's needed.
Absolutely, it is. And I cannot stress enough, I would like to drive home that we are trying to invest in all parts of our community. Young adults, elder folks, all of it. Like you said, everybody gets older. But the other things that bind us all is that everybody, especially in this community, can experience isolation. Everybody knows what it's like to not be part of the mainstream or to be on the fringes and to want that connection, to want that community. And in the capitalist paradigm we live in, everybody needs money. Education is a big part of that. And
Huge.
so if we can find something to tie all of us together, to tie all of our needs together, whether it is this program, whether it's other programs,
Yeah.
whether it is parties being thrown to invest in Black queer joy, whether it is education to invest in the community as a whole, all of these things are worth putting our time into.
Yes.
And so one more time, all of the details, go to oneroofchicago.org. In the upper right-hand corner, you'll see a tab that says Workforce. You can click there. You can also scan the QR code at the end of this episode. Go ahead and send an email to workforce@oneroofchicago.org. And you can also check out David's number right there. All of this will go to David Dodd, who I really appreciate being on today's program.
Oh, no,
Thank
this
you
is
so
great.
much, David.
No, thank you for having me. This is great.
Yes, it is. And you've been watching One Roof Chicago, presented by Inverted It. You've been watching Brick by Brick, presented by One Roof Chicago. I'm Chijioke Williams, she, her, and we'll see you next episode.